Mental illness isn't something that we're often easily comfortable talking about. I think that you're going to see a lot of parallels with my next guest. Just the little bit that I've talked to him and, reading the book. Um, Whatever struggles you're going through, I think you're going to be able to glean some amazing information and wisdom through his truth and transparency. You can't help but love my next author. It's called The Psychotic Fireman. Well, I never expected that. His name is Mick Crowe, and we welcome Mick today. Thank you.
Hello.
Mick, I know that you're coming to us all the way from England, and I'm so excited to hear your story. And I'm interested in the fact. Let's just start with the basic message of your book.
The basic message, right? Well, it's about the mind. Um, it starts with the biography because you need to know what sort of person I was before you can read the second part of the book, so to speak, because it goes into mental health, illness, what you experience, and it's just about the mind. Like basically, when I went to my doctors, I couldn't speak. I was locked into my own mind. And I found after a number of months that when I was writing, I could actually communicate with people. So my doctor treated me with the notes I gave him because I
Wow.
couldn't
You couldn't
talk.
verbalize.
I couldn't get it, no, just couldn't do it. And basically, they were mixed up, and he picked bits out here and there, and I was diagnosed with a lot of things. I don't know what my final diagnosis is because I've never asked, but I was labeled with psychotic depression, schizophrenia, post-traumatic stress, relating to a number of things. And really, you can't say what. It's an accumulation of things over years, and then it comes to a pinnacle and you break. And that's what happened to me. And I broke and I went downhill fast.
When you say it's an accumulation over years, are you talking about even into your young childhood?
Well, I don't think so much. There are one or two things, like my sister died when I was only 15, which obviously affected me and what have you. But the biggest crunch was when I joined the fire service. Now, I've had a lot of good times in the fire service, but I've also had a lot of bad times, a lot of bad experiences. And I do think they accumulated. And that was a significant part of my illness. I just couldn't cope with death anymore and things like that. I just thought, I've seen enough. I've done enough. And it just come to a pinnacle and I cried.
This is going to be a tough question. Are you glad that it came to that?
No, I'm not glad that I got ill because it's affected my life. I've been 20 years now and I'm still on medication. I'm well enough on medication, but I still get my down times. And I always think, well, you always get through it. And I always do. You just got to live with that. You never, well, maybe some people get better. I didn't. I can remain stable on medication and have a relatively good lifestyle and life.
So
If
it's
that
really
makes sense.
almost like a disability that you're overcoming. It's not something that you go, "Wow, I had a breakthrough and my life
Mm.
is much better now because of it." It's an ongoing daily struggle.
That's right. I
Mm.
can, and it'll just happen with people with an illness. They'll probably back me up by saying, for no reason at all, one day you go down, and it happens in seconds, and
Sure.
there's no reason for it. And but the medication you're given, helps you cope with that,
Yeah.
and you get through it. And I do get through it. Obviously, when I first became ill, I was a lot more ill more of the time.
Sure.
Now I can get by life quite nicely, but I still get them moments.
Mick, can you share your relationship, with your family and and your closest friends when you were going through this? And what was the most positive reinforcement? What kept you going?
Well, my family, and I nearly destroyed my family when I was ill. I put them under such immense pressure. It was unbelievable. And there's a number of times I thought, I've lost my family now. I've lost my wife. And especially before I went into hospital, because I did have to go into a psychiatric hospital. And I was there for 3.5 months. But when I got into hospital, my wife was the first one to come and see me, and she stuck by me 100%. And what I'd led her through,
Mhm.
I can't believe that she was so good. And my girls, they were young at the time, so they can't really remember the hospital times, but they've been great. But they've
Yeah,
still had hard times this last 20 years. But I try not to talk about things. Um, but they know when I'm not right, and they just leave me alone, and I do the
sure,
same.
sure. I think about people who have been in the military, who have seen unspeakable things, people who have been abused in all kind of ways as children. I mean, my goodness, we could just go on and on, with people who are hurting and
Mm.
how do you know that you need help? How did you were you acting out? What was it when you stopped verbally communicating that you realized it had gotten so far? Like, what are some of the early signs that some of our, listeners and viewers might have
Well,
flags for their spouses or family?
well, I gradually become worse and worse and worse. And because I wasn't able to communicate with anybody, I couldn't tell them what was going on. So initially, they didn't know what medication to give me. I was too ill to see a psychologist. It would have done me no good whatsoever. Um, I did see a psychologist later on, after I was ill, which was great. And I had cognitive, what they call it, cognitive behavioral therapy, all them sort of things. And they were good. Um, but I do believe the only person that can actually do it is yourself. You
Mm,
do have to be strong in a way to get through it. But
mm.
I can't really say when I actually got ill. All I know was I was hearing voices, and they were telling me to, commit suicide. And I did actually try and do it. And I was caught. I actually jumped into the crusher of a bin lorry, and the emergency button was pressed.
Oh
And
my
from there, I
goodness.
was taken by the police to the police
Oh,
station,
Mick.
and eventually what they called sectioned, and I think it's section 30 or something like that under the Mental Health Act for 30
And
days.
they got
So
you
I,
the help that you needed. I'm so
mm,
sorry that it got to that point.
and
You must feel like you were saved for a reason. You must feel like there's more to do, and I imagine a big part of that is sharing your message through your notes in your book.
I think that might be the reason. I've got a lot of information that I've brought out, which I think can help people,
Hmm,
and and also the carers, partners, spouses, nurses, doctors. If some of them just get a little point out of the book, which
yeah.
helps somebody, it might be beneficial for the future generations if they can learn a little bit more from my book, because there is a lot of stuff in there which I've never seen written or heard of before.
Can you
And
excuse me, I'm sorry, can you give us just one example
of,
of something that you've never like a discovery that you put in your book that people would say, "Wow, I mean, that's something I need to hear. I need to know more about."
well, before I was actually taken into hospital, I went to the hospital. And when I was sitting in this hospital, a man came up to me that I had seen 4 years earlier in a fire scenario. And this man was severely burned. And I eventually sprayed him with water to take away the burning and what have you. And this man sat in front of me in the waiting room of the hospital 4 years after the event, staring at me. And I also had a job where I've stepped on a burning body that was bubbling and splitting open and what have you. And my head just went on fire. Now, all this was in my head, but it was real to me.
Okay.
Now,
This is
doctors
where
know.
you're starting to lose reality, and I wanna kinda wrap up with talking about what do you want people to take out of this book? What do you want them to learn or to feel, or is it is it about maybe helping them, or just share with me what your thoughts are on that?
Well, I want people to talk about their mental health. It's sort of put away to the side and nobody wants to talk about it. And it's stigmatized.
Yes.
People come out with things, they will actually benefit from it. They've got to tell their doctors what's going on, because if they don't know what's going on, like I couldn't tell them, you get in all sorts of problems. But I
Yeah.
did find a way of communicating in a way by writing. And I gave them notes to my doctor, and it did help. When I got into hospital, it helped because they had all these notes, not only their own notes, but all these bits of paper I'd written with things from all over my mind, and that's what I wanted to take away. I want stigma taken out of it, really.
Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for your honesty, and what an inspiration you are. I mean,
Mm,
it's a good reminder how important it is to journal. And when we're going
yeah,
through difficult times,
yeah.
get it out of your head and put it onto paper. But
Yeah.
you were brave enough, you were fierce enough to be able to turn it into a book.
Okay,
And
and thank you for having me
yeah,
on your show.
thank you so much. Oh, before we let you go, where is the book available?
It'll be available on Amazon, I know.
Okay.
Um, and it's only just been released. So I've got to get in touch with my publisher and get all that information.
Mick Crowe, The Psychotic Fireman. Well, I never expected that. Thank you and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.